All right, good afternoon, everybody. All right, I want to knock a quick video out now, and it's going to be titled Another Jesus, Another Spirit, Another Gospel. And I'm referring to 2 Corinthians chapter 11, verse 4. So cults are born from people teaching a heretical Jesus, right? Jehovah's Witnesses and Mormons are just two examples that I'm referring to. So my first question to you today is, how did Paul preach? He clearly preached Jesus, Spirit, and the gospel according to the revelation of the mystery, not according to God's prophetic program. And you can find Paul lay that out in Romans chapter 16, verse 25, and Ephesians chapter 3, verses 1 to 7. So I want to go ahead and read 2 Corinthians chapter 11, verse 4 to you real quick. For if he that cometh preacheth another Jesus, whom we have not preached, or if ye have received another spirit which ye have not received, or another gospel which ye have not accepted, ye might well bear with him. All right, you can also find Paul talking about that over in Galatians chapter 1, but just for sake of time, I'm not going to go read that as well. Okay, so another Jesus. So it's imperative that we preach Jesus correctly, right? According to the revelation of the mystery, not according to prophecy. So we were all raised in some type of religious denomination, right? And in those traditional settings of church, who mainly teach Jesus Christ according to Matthew through John, which that is exactly what Paul is referring to as another Jesus, right? And another gospel. So, and that's wrong. We're not supposed to be teaching people that today. That's not sure. If you wanna teach people those scriptures, it's fine to go over and teach people those scriptures, but just don't tell people that, hey, this is how we're supposed to follow Christ today. This is where we're saved today. These have our salvation verses, because then you're preaching another Jesus, right? And you're teaching another gospel. Okay, so and you can find Paul talk about that in 2 Corinthians chapter 5, verse 16. Okay, so our marching orders today say not to preach Jesus Christ after the flesh. Acts 26:13, Romans 14:10, Ephesians 1:20 through 23, Colossians 2:10, 2 Thessalonians chapter 1, verses 7 to 10. There's a dangerous sect in 1 Corinthians chapter 1, verse 12, because they clearly rejected Paul's new revelation. It is a heresy to deny the resurrected Jesus Christ and his revelations to Paul. So, moving on throughout the verse, whom we have not preached. So this is the authority of Paul's apostleship right here, right? Galatians 1:8 and Romans 16:25. 1 Corinthians chapter 15, verses 2 to 3 proves Paul being the only one that Jesus revealed the gospel to. And I'm going to go ahead and read that to you real quick. That's where our gospel's found. Verses 2 and 3. I'll read verse 1 just to bring it in clarity. Moreover, brethren, I declare unto you the gospel, which I preached unto you, which also ye have received, and wherein ye stand. Verse 2, by which also ye are saved, if ye keep in memory what I preached unto you, unless ye have believed in vain. Verse 3, for I delivered unto you, first of all, that which I also received, how that Christ died for our sins according to the scriptures. All right, so that's what I'm referring to. Okay, so now let's flip over to 2 Timothy. I was going to read those, but I'm not going to read them just for sake of time. Try to keep this video short. But flip over and read 2 Timothy chapter 1, verse 11 and chapter 2, verse 8, where Paul talks about the resurrection of Christ affecting his message and apostleship. All right, now receiving another spirit. Question, what spirit? It's a spirit of fear and bondage. Romans 8:15, 1 Corinthians chapter 2, verse 12, and Galatians chapter 3, verses 1 to 2. Another gospel. Well, they had previously received Paul's gospel. 1 Corinthians 1:17, 1 Corinthians 4:17, 1 Corinthians 9:17, Galatians 1:12, and Ephesians 3:2. Another gospel is any gospel not found in the books of Romans through Philemon. Period. That's exactly what Paul's referring to. 2 Corinthians chapter 4, verses 3 and 4, Galatians 1, verses 6 and 9, Galatians 2, verses 7 through 9, and 1 Timothy chapter 1, verses 10 and 11. Here's a few examples of another gospel. Mark chapter 1, verses 14 to 15, Mark chapter 16, verses 15 to 16, Luke chapter 9, verse 6, Galatians 2:7, Revelation chapter 14, verses 6 and 7. All right, ye might well bear with him. Bottom line is, you're being deceived if you are receiving or teaching another Jesus, another gospel, and another spirit. Romans 16:18, 1 Corinthians 11:1. All right. So basically, the bottom line is, when you walk into a church, you need to be on your P's and Q's. You need to be able to test what that man behind the pulpit is saying. Is he preaching another Jesus? Is he preaching another gospel? If he is, are you going to continue to sit under that false doctrine or that incorrect doctrine? I'm not going to say it's false because it's true, because it's scriptural, but it's incorrect doctrine for what's going on today, for what God's doing today. So you have to ask yourself those things. All right. Well, grace and peace to you guys. Hopefully you enjoyed this video, and I'll put the verses in the comment section, or I'll put the verses in the description.